adopted 6 years ago yesterday. We just celebrated Jacob's birthday last evening. So when we were dating, we used to, like anybody, talk about your dreams in the future. Dan is adopted and his sister is also adopted. So we had discussed that as a possibility that we were, open to that. And then we eventually got married, and when it was time to start our family, we had a lot of difficulty and failed fertility treatments for a long time. And then when I was in graduate school, miraculously, we were pregnant and we had a daughter, and I finished that program, and she was probably 2 or 3, and we wanted to have another child, and we thought that it would come very naturally, and it did not. We discussed several times about adoption versus fertility treatment again, and so we did at that point try fertility treatment, and we just didn't get anywhere. We weren't willing at that time. For us, it just wasn't a good fit to do IVF. And then when we finally felt like we had exhausted what we were willing to do in that realm, we came back around to adoption, and it was interesting. It was different people that crossed our paths within a 3-week period. I had a patient who mentioned to me this particular adoption lawyer, and then 2 separate people at our church and school community. And I talked to my husband, and I was like, I just feel like
it was meant to be.
Yeah, it was beyond coincidental. And so we reached out to this adoption lawyer, and that started our whole process.
He recommended that we search it out and pointed it as a great avenue to get our story and, just a broader audience, right? And
Yeah, it was funny because right before we went into his office for the first meeting, we both quickly said, open adoption or close? And we both were like, closed. And then we went and we met him. And it's really not an option these days, And so he was just really educating us. And then at that time, I think I had pulled myself off of social media, and he just impressed upon us that really he could do the best he can. But if we utilize social media, we will far increase our odds and, reach so many more people. We had like a little postcard that we would hand out to random people or anybody. But he really just did encourage like creating a Facebook page and using an online profile of sorts. But when people do ask us about our process, it was very unconventional, and Adoption.com for sure was amazing. Our paperwork became legal on October 31st, and Jacob was born January 13th, and I was there the next morning. Like, that's unbelievably fast. It was amazing. We had to process it. It was disappointing that that's the direction we had to go to, but it makes the most sense. In the end, Dan and I talked about this before the call. I did most of it. I have more free time to do that, but it was fun putting it together and, showing your family and your story, because I do think it's unique. I hope that Dan being adopted will offer our son some insight, some comfort to that feeling that only an adopted person can ever have. I can sympathize with whatever those feelings are, but I won't ever know what that is where he does.
We were not aware that she was very close. When she first reached out, we actually found out later that it was a friend of hers.
Yeah.
Who reached out to us initially. She had no prenatal care, and the information that we got from her friend was maybe she was 7 months along.
Yeah. So it was a phone call initially by a friend/support person, and she posed as the sister of the birth mom. My sister is 7 months pregnant and is thinking of adopting. And then when I called back, I wasn't able to get anyone. So at this point, we'd had maybe 3 or 4 other interactions that didn't end up in anything. So I wasn't thinking that this was going anywhere. And
we thought we had like 2 months to develop this relationship.
If it was something, it wasn't like in our minds days away. So then I was at work on a Wednesday, and I got an email with an attached picture of a newborn baby, and it said, please call, and I was like, oh my goodness. So I work in an OR environment, and all my coworkers knew what was going on. My colleague came and was able to get me out of the room, and I made the phone calls, and it was just multiple calls between me and the lawyer and my husband, and then multiple calls between between my husband and I, and then we finally did have conversations with the birth mom directly. And then she and our adoption lawyer spoke, and then it was just advised to go down, and it was in another state. So we're in Ohio. He was born in North Carolina. And by the time all that took place, all the phone calls were done and decisions made, it
was evening, right?
It was evening, and the last flight there from here I wouldn't have made, and I could drive there and arrive before the next morning flight. So I drove through the night, and I got there. He was born at like 8 something in the morning.
8:40? Oh, that was neat.
37, something like that. And I got there at 4 a.m. the following morning, and we've never been apart. He did have a 2-week NICU stay, and then we were, by the NICU nurse, she set up the Ronald McDonald House for us, which was, oh my goodness,
awesome.
Another blessing, an amazing thing that we try to support as much as possible. We stayed there for 4 weeks during his hospital stay, and then during the time that it took for all of the state documentation to be finalized so that we could actually leave state lines.
So you were there for a month, basically.
Right.
And Mia and I traveled every weekend, back and forth.
There was, a lot of blessing in it. They came for weekends, and then there was a time, I think when he was released from the hospital, Dan then flew down and spent several days with just
the three of us.
Yeah, the three of us. And it was, I try to explain it to people, it was like nothing else you could ever have with even a natural born child, because you would be in your home environment. We were
isolated, out of state, just the three of us.
It was like the best bonding time ever, with no interruption, in the Ronald McDonald House, where they just take care of you. They provide the meals. And so there were no distractions even of your own household. It was so perfect. He really does want to meet her. And I said that, I think that will definitely happen. We maintain our Facebook adoption page mainly because that is the best way that we see she does follow him. Phone numbers over time, I think when he was about 6 months old, I no longer had like a solid phone number to reach out to her, but then I could see that she was following that. And I know she knows how to contact us. Nothing in our information has changed. And she does. And her life is improving, and she's making strides. She sends me pictures of her other children. She sees pictures of us. I've sent letters. It is definitely an open adoption. He is aware of his story and curious about her. And so that will come in time, as he matures. It was so cool to see that they were like matched, on our profile, and that we, had adopted. Like, I forget how it was, but there was some sort of flag on our profile that said adopted or matched or something like that. And then I think it just lapsed after that. I don't remember any follow-up, to be fair, but also I was busy, tired.
Yeah, we were busy.
There's one little nugget of a significance. We had another miraculous pregnancy. And ironically, I spent a whole day with his birth mom in the hospital, waiting for a local lawyer to come and have her sign everything so that she could leave and that would be done. In that time, we talked, and she was not in a great place, but she was very kind to me, and felt very strongly that we were who he needed to be with. And she knew our story of infertility, and she literally said, "You will have another baby." And she just was like emphatic that just please love my son, which I was like, of course we would. And I was also so doubtful, like, honey, you don't know, we're never gonna have another baby. Well, we had another baby. And right before I turned 42, he came. So we have a 13-year-old girl, our adopted son, Jake, who just turned 6 yesterday, and we have a 2.5-year-old boy. It has been difficult because I think Jacob has, unfortunately, it was probably not good timing when he was like 3 to have a new baby and distraction. And so we've overcome a lot of obstacles, but to see them love each other and have each other as little buddies is so beautiful. Not that there's anything terrible in raising a single, but we had our daughter for almost 8 years before Jake came along. And it's so nice to have a sibling and a buddy. And they just they have their own little chant, like best buds forever. And it's the cutest.
First of all, without a doubt, without Adoption.com, we would never have found Jake.
No. And in general, we prefer to be a little bit more private and not use as much social media, although that is the way of the world and we're going to have to get on board to succeed. I would say let go of that fear, show yourself, and then the right person will find you. I mean, we were so blessed